You ever walk into your house and immediately feel like something's wrong, but you can't name it? That's how it hit me. A gut thing. Not a loud alarm. More like static in the back of your mind. I was standing in the doorway of my own home, suitcase in hand, just breathing in that weird stillness. I had flown back from Austin a day early. The conference ended ahead of schedule, and rather than spend another night at the Marriott, I caught the first direct flight back to Seattle. I didn't text Julia. I wanted to surprise her. 11 years of marriage, and we still tried to do those little things. Or, I thought we did. When I walked in, the lights were on in the kitchen, but the rest of the house was dim. No TV on. No music. Just the low hum of the fridge and the sound of my own shoes hitting the hardwood. Then I saw them. 2 wine glasses on the counter. One had a deep lipstick ring near the rim, not the shade Julia usually wore. The other was half drunk, but clean. A bottle of red, unopened, expensive sat nearby. It hadn't even been uncorked, which struck me as odd. A still-warm pizza box lay between the glasses. Sausage, mushrooms, and peppers. She never ordered mushrooms. I lifted the lid. 2 slices gone, crusts missing. I just stood there processing. It wasn't the wine or the pizza that made my stomach tighten. It was the way the glasses sat perfectly angled toward each other, like someone had been mid-conversation and left in a hurry. I set my bag down quietly, like I didn't want to disturb something that had already fled the scene. I walked through the living room. Her cardigan was draped over the back of a chair, not the hook where she usually left it. There was a faint floral scent in the air. Not her usual perfume, something sharper, more citrusy. It lingered like it didn't belong here. Upstairs, the bedroom door was open. I stepped inside and stopped. Both sides of the bed were unmade. Now, I travel a lot, so when I'm gone, my side usually stays untouched. But not this time. The sheets were rumpled. Her pillow was pressed against mine. And there was an indentation on my side, subtle but there. I know how she sleeps. This wasn't it. Then I heard the shower running. The sound made me flinch. I waited. Not moving. Just watching the door to the master bath like it might offer an explanation. The water stopped. A pause. Then the rustle of a towel, footsteps, and finally the door opened. She stepped out wrapped in a towel, hair wet, skin flushed from the heat. She froze for a half-second, just long enough for me to see the flicker in her eyes. Then came the smile. "Ryan, you're back early," she said, acting surprised. Her voice was high, chipper. "You didn't text." "No," I said, keeping my tone even. "Wanted to surprise you." She crossed the room quickly and gave me a kiss, short, dry. It landed more like a reflex than a greeting. "I just got out of the shower," she said, as if I couldn't see that. She laughed lightly. "I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow night." "I wrapped up early," I said. "Didn't see a reason to hang around another day?" She nodded, then turned toward her dresser. I caught the motion, quick and practiced, as she slid her phone into the top drawer and shut it. She didn't mention it. Neither did I. Instead, I changed the subject. We made small talk while she changed into her robe. I told her about the flight, the delay on the runway, the bad airport coffee. She laughed at the right spots, but she wasn't really there. The whole thing felt like a poorly rehearsed play. Like she was trying to stick to the script but kept forgetting her lines. We went downstairs. I asked her about the wine glasses, about the pizza. She waved it off. "Oh, that," she said, smiling. "A friend stopped by earlier. Just a quick visit. We caught up, had a slice, then they left. You just missed them." "What friend?" She hesitated, then gave a name. Some woman I vaguely remembered from her yoga studio. I didn't question it, not out loud. But my mind took a mental snapshot of the moment, the way she avoided eye contact, how she stood half behind the counter like she needed a barrier between us. I nodded and let it go. I didn't want to seem paranoid. Or worse, controlling. But that night, everything felt wrong. We sat on the couch and watched TV, but neither of us paid attention. She kept glancing at her phone, then remembering it wasn't on her. I watched her fingers twitch like she wanted to check it. Every so often, she'd say something, a comment about the show or a half-hearted joke, but it didn't stick. Around 10, she said she was tired. I watched her disappear up the stairs, then just sat there for a while, alone with the hum of the fridge and the weight of my own thoughts. Eventually, I made my way to bed. She was already under the covers, facing away from me. The room smelled faintly of eucalyptus shampoo. But there was something else too, something unfamiliar. Cologne I didn't recognize. Faint, but distinct. I lay there for a long time, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself it was nothing. She was acting weird because I came home early. That's all. Maybe she really did have a friend over. Maybe the wine and pizza were just 2 women catching up. Maybe I was just overtired and letting my imagination run wild. But as I stared at the shadows shifting across the ceiling, I couldn't stop hearing it. The silence. Not peaceful, not gentle. Felt like something watching me. Waiting. I didn't say anything. I didn't ask. But deep down I knew. The air in the house had changed. Something had shifted. And even though I couldn't see it yet, the fracture had already begun and that I didn't sleep much that night. I stared at the ceiling while Julia slept beside me, her breathing even and slow. Or maybe she wasn't asleep at all. Maybe she was just pretending, like I was pretending everything was okay. You know how sometimes your brain plays memory games in the dark? That night, mine was running a highlight reel I never asked for. Moments I had dismissed, brushed off, forgotten on purpose. It started with the yoga classes. She used to go twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. I remember because it gave me time to catch up on debugging code or sneak in a beer with my buddy Nick. But somewhere along the line, it turned into 3 times a week. Then 4. Then 5. Hot yoga, she said. The place added new classes. It helps me clear my head. At the time, I admired her dedication. I mean, people go through phases. You pick up something new, get obsessed, dive in. But now, replaying it at 3 a.m., it didn't feel like a hobby. Felt like an excuse. And then there was the perfume. Julia wore the same perfume for years, light, floral, subtle. I could still smell it on the collar of my travel jacket, the one she hugged me in at the airport last winter. But a couple months ago, it changed. It was bolder, sharper, expensive. I remember asking about it once, casually. She shrugged. Just something new I found online. Felt like trying something different. Different. That word sat wrong in my mouth now. Then there was the crying. Subtle, quiet. I'd hear the bathroom door click shut. And when she came out, her eyes would be red. Sometimes she'd say it was allergies. Other times she'd say she was tired. One night I pressed a little, and she just smiled and shook her head. I'm okay. Just emotional lately. She'd always been a little guarded with her feelings. So I didn't pry. That was the thing, I never pried. I trusted her. I always trusted her. We weren't perfect, but we were solid. At least that's what I told myself. Over and over again. But that night, I started questioning everything. Around 4 in the morning, I got out of bed and went downstairs. I poured a glass of water and leaned against the counter. The wine glasses were gone. She must have cleaned them up while I was unpacking. Same with the pizza box. All gone. Too clean. I checked the dishwasher. Empty. I checked the trash, taken out. Nothing. My stomach twisted. That was when I remembered the name on her phone. A few weeks back, we were in the kitchen. I was making coffee. She was sitting at the island, texting. I glanced over her shoulder, and a message preview popped up on her screen. Cameron L. Can't stop thinking about. She locked the phone immediately. I remember how my voice caught when I asked, "Who's Cameron?" She barely flinched. "Oh, just a guy from the accounting team. We're working on the quarterly projections." That made sense. Sort of. She worked in project strategy, so accounting overlaps weren't unusual. But the way she said it, flat, rehearsed, like she had practiced. Still, I let it go. That was the pattern. Little things. Each one small enough to dismiss on its own. But now they were forming a constellation, and it was starting to spell something I didn't want to read. Later that morning, when Julia woke up, she acted normal. Too normal. Made coffee, asked about my trip, mentioned some movie she wanted us to watch. I nodded, smiled, responded in kind. I didn't let on. But inside, everything felt off-center. The worst part? I didn't know who to talk to. Nick had his own stuff going on, new baby, stressful job, in-laws visiting. And even if I told him, what would I say? Hey, I think my wife is cheating because she changed perfumes and eats mushrooms now? It sounded ridiculous. And I hated that I felt like the crazy one. By midweek, the tension had built to a quiet roar in my head. I started watching her more closely. Not because I wanted to catch her, but because I couldn't stop myself. Her movements, her habits, her expressions. All of it became data points in this silent investigation I didn't even want to be conducting. She smiled less, laughed more, At her phone, not with me. At night, she stayed up after I went to bed. She said she was catching up on work or texting her sister. One night, I walked into the hallway and heard her in the guest bathroom, whispering into the phone. When she noticed me, she jumped. Literally startled. I remember the exact exchange. "Who were you talking to?" I asked, keeping my tone light. She gave me this wide-eyed look and said, "No one. Just a work thing." Sounded personal. She smiled tightly. "Don't start." And just like that, the conversation ended. She walked past me and went to bed. That phrase, "don't start," rang in my ears for hours. Like she was preparing for a fight that hadn't even happened. By Thursday, I was on edge. I didn't want to be paranoid. I didn't want to be that guy. But I also couldn't ignore the feeling that I was slowly being written out of my own story. Then came the last straw, the yoga bag. I got home early from a client meeting and noticed her gym bag on the bench near the door. Normally, she takes it with her straight to the laundry room. But this time, it sat wide open. Inside was a change of clothes, a small towel, and tucked into a side pocket, a hotel-branded card holder. One of those plastic sleeves that holds a keycard. No key inside. Just the sleeve. Embossed with the logo of a boutique hotel downtown. Not exactly near her yoga studio. Not near her office either. I picked it up and stared at it for a long minute. The logo gold lettering on white felt like a punch to the gut. I didn't say anything when she got home. Just watched her as she breezed in, kissed me on the cheek, and headed upstairs. She was humming to herself. Carefree. I followed her a minute later and watched as she took the bag from the bench, carried it into the laundry room, and dumped everything straight into the washer. Every single thing. Then she ran a cycle. Hot. My stomach turned. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling again. Same shadows, same silence. Julia slept beside me, curled up, breathing softly. I listened to it like I used to find it comforting. Now it felt distant. Foreign. Something inside me had shifted. I didn't want to admit it. But deep down, I knew, or at least, I was beginning to know. There was someone else in this marriage. And I wasn't the only one lying awake at night anymore. It happened on a Thursday. Funny how something that unravels your whole life can show up as just another text. It was around lunchtime. I was eating at my desk, half listening to a debugging podcast while picking through cold Thai leftovers. My phone buzzed. It was Nick, my oldest friend, someone I've known since high school. We don't text often unless it's about fantasy football or inside jokes from 1997. But this time his message just said, "Call me. It's about Julia. Important." I stared at the screen for a good 10 seconds before dialing. My stomach didn't just sink, it dropped. Like it knew what I didn't. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "What's going on?" There was a pause. Then Nick's voice came through, low and cautious. "Listen, man. I wasn't going to get involved. It's not my place. But I saw something and I thought you deserved to know." My grip tightened around the phone. "Saw what?" "Julia," he said. "Last week. At Portland International. I was flying standby for a charter gig and went through a side terminal. They've got new cameras installed by the hangars. My client was late, so I led time scrubbing some of the footage we pulled. And she was on there. I didn't breathe. She told me she went to her aunt's that weekend." Nick sighed. "I know. That's why I'm telling you. She wasn't alone." My mouth went dry. "She was with a guy," he said. "Tall, dark hair, probably mid-30s. Looked like they were traveling together, matching carry-ons." I watched the whole clip twice. They hugged, kissed his cheek. She held his hand. Then stood there watching while he went through the gate. My mind was silent. Not blank, just frozen. "I pulled the footage for you," he added. "Check your inbox. I'm sending it now." I opened my email, heart pounding like a drumline in my ears. The file was there, airport footage _jw.mp4. I clicked. Buffering. Then it started. There she was. Julia. Wearing the long gray coat she told me she accidentally left at her aunt's. Her hair pulled back, her carry-on in hand. Smiling at a man I had never seen before. No hesitation. No nerves. Just comfort. In * Macy. They looked like a couple. The camera angle caught everything, the cheek kiss, the lingering handhold, the way she laughed up at him like they shared a secret. I stared so hard I barely blinked. She looked happy. Like the Julia I hadn't seen in months. And it wasn't with me. The timestamp was clear, Friday, 7:46 p.m. The same night she told me she was stuck in traffic heading to her aunt's in Olympia. She even texted me a photo of a takeout container, supposedly from the place her aunt liked. I had believed her. I had replied with a thumbs-up emoji. I went still, cold. I opened our joint bank account, fingers moving on autopilot. Transactions from that night were still there, the timeline almost mocking me. First, a charge at a wine bar in downtown Portland. Then, a tasting menu dinner for two. After midnight, a charge from the Sterling, a boutique hotel 2 blocks from the restaurant. And the next morning, room service breakfast for two. I stared at the screen like it might rearrange itself. Like maybe if I refreshed the page, it would rewrite the facts. But it didn't. It was all right there. The dinner, the hotel, the lie, the first real proof. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything across the room or punch a wall like some dramatic movie husband. I just sat there, completely hollow. You always imagine the moment you find out. You think it'll come with thunder or some soul-shaking scream. But for me, it felt more like this dull, suffocating quiet. Like someone had pressed a pillow against my chest and just held it there. She had lied. And not just in passing. This wasn't forgetting to mention a harmless white lie. This was constructed, planned. She had built an entire story. A whole weekend, complete with props and details, just to hide a getaway with someone else. And I had believed every word. It wasn't until an hour later, after the footage had played 5 times and I'd studied each transaction like a detective, that I opened my laptop and started dragging files into a folder. I titled it, Truth, *TS, Bank Statements, Hotel Receipts, a still frame from the footage, her arm around his. I didn't know what I was going to do with all of it, but some part of me needed to gather it, to make it real, to prepare for something. That night, I got home early. She was in the kitchen, humming along to music, slicing vegetables like she was auditioning for a cooking show. "Hey, babe," she said, smiling. "You're home early." "Yeah," I replied, setting down my keys. Felt like it. She walked over and kissed me. I let her, but my mind was miles away. She told me about her day. A long meeting. A last-minute budget call. Someone named Cameron gave a bad presentation. She rolled her eyes at the name. I stood there, nodding, letting her lie. It was the same voice she used when she talked to her mother. The overly sweet, overly practiced tone. I recognized it now. I just hadn't wanted to before. After dinner, she scrolled her phone on the couch while we watched something forgettable. I didn't say a word. I watched the reflection in her eyes. I listened to the taps of her fingers. I noticed she was still hiding her screen. And it finally hit me. The person I loved didn't live here anymore. The woman sitting across from me was someone else. Someone good at pretending. Someone who had already replaced me in secret. And now sat in my house, eating my food, sharing my bed, like nothing had changed. But I had changed. I didn't tell her what I knew. Not that night. Not the next. Instead, I waited. Because the worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the way she still smiled at me like I was hers. And I wasn't going to let her see me break. Not yet. The day after I saw the footage, everything I did was deliberate. I moved like a man walking through fog. But each step had weight. It was strange, how quiet the shift was. There wasn't some dramatic confrontation. No shouting match in the kitchen. I didn't throw her phone or demand answers. I just detached. The night before, I'd watched Julia fall asleep next to me. She curled up with her back to me, like she always did. And for the first time in 11 years, I didn't reach over. I didn't pull her close or touch her shoulder or whisper goodnight. I stared at the ceiling until I couldn't take it anymore. Then got up and sat in the living room in the dark. I stared at the window for hours, watching my own reflection fade with the rising sun. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I canceled the Costa Rica trip. That was the first move. We had been planning it for months. An early anniversary getaway. Beaches, volcano hikes, open-air bungalows. I'd paid for most of it already. I'd even booked the romantic arrival package at the resort. Now it felt like a joke. I called the airline, got the miles refunded, called the hotel next. They gave me a partial credit. Then I called the tour agency. They were less sympathetic. I didn't care. It felt like erasing chalk lines from pavement. Traces of something that never really belonged. Then I called the bank. I opened a separate account. Quietly moved over the remaining funds I had set aside for the trip. Left just enough in our joint account for groceries, bills, her everyday expenses. Nothing drastic. Just enough that she wouldn't notice the change right away. I was careful. She texted me that morning. Morning babe, yellow heart. Meeting ran long. What should we do for dinner? I stared at the message for a while. The little heart emoji made my stomach turn. Don't know. Something easy, I replied. I still played along. Because the thing is, when someone lies to your face for long enough, they start to believe you're blind. And I wasn't going to correct her. Not yet. I wanted to see how deep the lie would go. How long she'd keep weaving it. How much of our life she'd polish up while burying what she had done. I watched her closely that evening. We ate on the patio, takeout sushi, per her suggestion. She poured wine into 2 glasses and lit a citronella candle like we were starring in some kind of lifestyle blog. You're quiet, she said. I nodded. Just tired. She smiled and touched my hand, and I let her. That might have been the worst part, how easily she played the role of the good wife. How easily I let her. After dinner, she went inside to shower. I sat out there, sipping my drink and watching the sun go down. The cicadas were loud that night. The kind of loud that gets under your skin. I didn't sleep in our bed. I told her I had a migraine and moved to the guest room. She offered to bring me something. I said no. I laid there staring at the ceiling again, just like the night before. The house creaked differently now. Like it was reacting to the weight of everything left unsaid. The next morning, I called a friend from college, Sindre, who now lived in Oslo. We'd lost touch over the years, but he had always said if I ever wanted to visit Norway, he had a couch and strong coffee waiting. He answered on the second ring. Ryan West. As I live and breathe. Sindre, I said, you still have that couch? He laughed. What did you do? Nothing yet, I said. But I need to disappear for a while. There was a pause. Come. We'll make room. Couch is now a guest bed. I booked the flight for Saturday night. One way. I used the rest of the Costa Rica refund to cover the ticket. It felt symbolic, in a way, replacing something romantic with something cold, distant, and clean. That night, Julia was in a good mood. She opened a new bottle of wine and told me about a promotion her manager hinted at. She floated around the kitchen in leggings and a hoodie, playing a playlist I made for her years ago. It was the kind of domestic bliss people post about. But to me, it felt like the house was performing. When she went to bed, I stayed downstairs and packed. Not loudly. Not all at once. Just one drawer at a time. I chose carefully a few shirts, jeans, my hiking boots, passport, external hard drives, and the manila envelope I had labeled Truth. I didn't take much. Didn't want to trigger her radar. I could always replace the rest. She still thought we were going to Costa Rica in 3 days. The next day, I scheduled one final wire transfer to myself and disconnected our smart home from my account. I logged out of our Nest thermostat, the Ring cameras, Spotify. I turned off notifications from our shared calendar. Then I left a note on the dining table. Not a goodbye letter. Just a line of code written in Sharpie on an index card. Python. If trust is none. Exit A. Saturday night, I left the house with one carry-on and a jacket. Julia texted me at 10:43 p.m. just as I sat down at the gate. I watched the preview blink across the screen. Hey, I just had the weirdest dream about Costa Rica. Desert island, I can't wait. I didn't open it. The boarding group was called. I stood, phone in my pocket, and stepped forward into the jetway without looking back. She would wake up the next morning expecting sun hats and boarding passes. Instead, she'd find silence. And me? I was already halfway over the Atlantic. Everything I'd built with her, every shared moment, every plan, every lie she wrapped in a smile, stayed behind. And I finally realized something. It didn't matter anymore. I wasn't there to see it. I only heard about it later, the texts, the photos, the frantic voicemails. But even from 4,600 miles away, I could picture it clearly. Every moment, every expression, every unraveling thread. They were supposed to fly out Sunday morning. Same time, same airline, same gate I had booked months ago, thinking this trip would save something already bleeding out. The plan had been simple: Costa Rica, 10 days, no work, no distractions. Reconnection. Redemption. Instead, they showed up at the San Francisco airport in matching t-shirts. Literally matching t-shirts. West Family Escape 2024 printed across the front in beachy turquoise script. Her idea, I'm sure. Julia loved those coordinated visuals, Instagrammable, curated, perfect. She probably imagined the 3 of them, herself, her sister Naomi, and him, posting a smiling photo at the gate, captioned with something like, "Let the healing begin." But life doesn't always cooperate with the fantasy. They arrived 2 hours early. That's what Naomi posted anyway, a cheerful airport selfie before everything went sideways. Julia wore white linen pants, big sunglasses, and her usual performance-ready smile. Cameron was there too, in khakis and a backpack, giving off relaxed confidence like he belonged. It must have felt like control. Until they got to the check-in counter. That's where the crash happened. The reservations were gone. Not delayed. Not rescheduled. Cancelled. Under what name, the clerk must have asked. Julia West. WSD? 3 travelers. Tap 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 on the keyboard. Then a pause. I'm sorry, there's no active booking under that name. The itinerary was cancelled last night. Cancelled. Not even refundable at that point. No alerts. No fallback. No tickets. I'd made sure of it. Julia called me 3 times in a row. I let each one ring out. Then her messages started coming through, rapid fire. First the confused ones. Ryan, something's wrong with the booking. Did you change the flight? Then the defensive ones. You need to call me. We can't get on the plane. Please just explain. Then the angry ones. You had no right. What are you doing? You're being insane. And finally, the desperate one. Please. Don't do this to me. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I sat in a quiet cafe in Bergen, sipping black coffee and watching seagulls skitter across the harbor. I had a new SIM card, a new number, and the old phone was in airplane mode, not that it mattered. I was done explaining myself. But Julia wasn't done explaining hers. According to Naomi's Facebook post, which a mutual friend kindly screenshot Ted and sent me, they ended up stranded for 6 hours at the airport. No backup hotel. No alternate plan. Julia made a scene at the counter, demanding to speak to a supervisor. There must be some mistake, she kept saying, loud enough for others to turn and stare. I could see it all playing out in my mind. Her voice going shrill. The sunglasses coming off. Her pacing back and forth while Naomi tried to keep things calm. But the real twist? Cameron walked away. Just walked. No speech. No fight. No dramatic breakup. He turned, muttered something about not being in the middle of this, and left the terminal. Left the trip. Left her. She stood there in her t-shirt, holding a duffel bag and a family escape fantasy that had just imploded in front of strangers. That image stuck with me more than I wanted it to. Julia posted later that night. I expected rage. Accusation. Maybe a cryptic quote about betrayal. Instead, she played the victim. It was a blurry photo of the terminal ceiling, a disposable coffee cup in frame, captioned. Sometimes the people you trust the most leave you when you need them most. Life's cruel. That's all it said. No context. No names. Just vague heartbreak. And it worked at first. The comments came in fast. Her yoga friends, her cousin from Vancouver, even her old college roommate all chimed in with variations of "so sorry," "hun broke a heart," and "you deserve better." There were crying face emojis. Prayers sent. Digital hugs offered. But then the comments shifted. Not immediately. Quiet at first. A former co-worker of mine, someone who knew both of us from way back, replied. That's not how I heard it. Then someone from my old developer team dropped a single sentence. You don't get to play the victim if you wrote the script. I didn't tell anyone to comment. I didn't ask for backup. But people remember. They notice who was always there, who paid for things, who supported who through hard times, who never missed birthdays or anniversaries. I didn't need to fight back. The truth had inertia. By the next morning, Julia's post had vanished. So did her profile photo? I didn't feel triumphant. Not exactly. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't justice. It just was. Like gravity. You lie long enough, you fall. Later that week, I got one last email from her. It wasn't angry. It was a plain subject line, you win. I didn't open it. What was there left to say? The marriage wasn't just over, it had been hollowed out months before I left. She just hadn't noticed the walls were already gone. Now she was standing in the rubble. And I was gone, already starting something new on the other side of the world. Bergen was quiet. The kind of quiet I didn't know I needed. I rented a flat near the harbor, just me, my laptop, and the Northern Sea. I hired a lawyer back home, sent the folder I'd named Truth and Disconnected. I didn't warn Julia. Didn't announce the divorce. I just filed it, supported by statements, photos, and timestamped lies. A month later, I got an alert. She tried to sell some of my furniture. High-value stuff. Claimed it was a joint asset. I froze her access. 2 days after that, Cameron was gone, moved out. She tried to cover it up like it never happened. But her accounts were already locked and the legal paperwork was moving fast. Her mask didn't just slip. It shattered. 6 months later, I was helping restore a lighthouse on the coast. Fresh air. Honest work. No lies. I stopped checking my phone at night. I stopped explaining my silence. One day, I got a letter in Julia's handwriting. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I already knew what it said: regret, loneliness, maybe even love. But it didn't matter anymore. I stood on my balcony as the sun hovered over the water, slow and gold and quiet. For the first time in years, I felt no weight on my chest. It was over. And I was free.